This has been a video that I have been meaning to film for a few weeks because I've been getting a lot of requests for it lately. How did I decide to go to therapy? How did I choose my therapist? How do you choose a therapist? This is my therapy story. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I'm a huge advocate for therapy and counseling, and I feel like everybody needs it. Maybe not always at all points in your life, but at some point or another, I truly believe that it's just nice to talk to someone about how you're feeling, get an expert, not opinion, and they don't necessarily even tell you like what you should do, but they just ask the right questions and give you some like techniques and some tips and tricks. And like, you're right now sitting on my bedside table, and in my bedside table I have papers from my therapist. So when I like closed my file a couple months ago, I got her to just like write me out some Coles notes, and I read them, you know, periodically. And anyway, we're jumping ahead. I feel like I should start this with a disclaimer saying clearly I'm not a therapist. Clearly I'm not an expert. I'm just a woman who has benefited from therapy at multiple times in my life and who is an advocate for people finding whatever works for you. What I'm going to talk about might not be for everyone, might be triggering. I hope it's not. I just want it to be helpful, and I want you to know that you're not alone and that there's no shame in talking to a therapist and getting counseling. In fact, I believe it's one of the bravest things you can do is to see a therapist. So I have seen multiple throughout my life. The first time I got therapy, I'm pretty sure I've talked about this in a video. It's like, my first love said to me, you need to go to therapy. And initially I was like super offended, but he was totally right. So it was not long after my dad died. He passed away when I was 19, and I thought I was handling it, but obviously I wasn't. And that was just great, you know, to have someone who loved me and who was invested in me and my life and my well-being to say like, hey, you should probably talk to someone. Anyways, so at that time, my dad was a school teacher. So in his like benefits, there was specific therapists that were covered. So I saw someone, and I only saw him a few times, but it was just, I remember it being so helpful. And one takeaway that I still think about to this day is he said to me, you're like a pressure cooker. So you've been through this loss, this like horrific thing that's happened to you, losing your dad when you're 19. I was home at the time. It was like horrific. And he's like, so you're like a pressure cooker. You're swirling, you're about to bubble over. So any little thing that's added to your life, you're just gonna explode. Cause you know, the things that would set me off didn't really make sense to me. Anyway, so that therapist I saw because he was covered through my health benefits. So that's one way to decide like how you're gonna see someone is like look at your insurance and see who's covered, what's covered. Cause like some insurance policies, you know, you can only see like specific kinds of therapists and counselors. And if you aren't in therapy because money is an issue, that would be a good place to start. So I saw him, and just for a few sessions, and then we were done. And then I went and saw another therapist pretty, I would say like maybe 3 months out before Jared and I got married, because I really didn't want to be sad about my dad not being at my wedding. I wanted to enjoy my wedding. He wasn't going to be there to walk me down the aisle, which was really hard for me. It was really difficult. So in this case, I saw a therapist who, like, my insurance at that job, when I was at that job, didn't cover therapy. So I just asked around and asked some friends, and one of my friends recommended this gentleman, and he was helpful. And again, I think I only saw him like 3 times. And he just gave me the tools and the preparation to fully enjoy my wedding. I was never sad about my dad. I never had to like take a moment to cry. There's beautiful photos of my brother Sean walking me down the aisle, and we're laughing. Like, it was such a joyous occasion, and I fully credit therapy for that. And that was like, we got married in 2009. I felt like I kind of just needed a check-in at that point with the therapist. So that was great. And then fast forward, we had Thomas. He was born with special needs, and we decided we weren't handling it as well as we probably could, so we sought out couples counseling. And I just asked around to some girlfriends who had had therapists and who they recommended, and this one came like highly recommended to me. And one thing I really liked about her is I remember like vividly when I first talked to her, she said, like, check out your insurance, and if I'm not covered by your insurance, I will help you find someone else in town who is. And I just thought that was super classy. She wasn't covered, but we ended up just paying out of pocket for her because she came so highly recommended, and instantly I was like, you're a good egg. I really like you. We're gonna benefit from you. Jared and I really like melded with her. We meshed with her, and got a lot out of our sessions. So we saw her for years, to be honest. And when we first started going, she was like, I don't really understand why you're here. Like, you guys seem okay. But it really helped bring out a lot of stuff that was going on kind of like behind the scenes and that was unsaid. And we really delved into some issues in our relationship and, you know, raising Thomas, and she was very helpful and very supportive. And I know that like the cost of a therapist can be something that's like a real deterrent, but I always just saw it as like such an investment in everything else in my life, because she was able to give me so many like valuable skills that it transferred into like friendships. I'm closer to my family because of things I learned through her. I'm just like a stronger woman in general. Like, if I could talk to Mare, who started seeing her whenever it was, like 2014, I guess, like totally different human being. Anyway, so that was great. And then both Jeremy and I started seeing separate therapists through our local health authority, and that was prescribed through our GP, and so that was free. And that therapist for me was incredible because we just talked about me. We weren't talking about the marriage, we weren't talking about anything like about Jeremy, it was just all about me, and I really needed that at the time. So as you can see, I've had multiple therapists, and how do you go about choosing a therapist? Well, like checking your insurance is really good to see what you cover, but I actually texted my therapist because I knew that there was like specific credentials. So she said, master's level of education from an accredited university registered with a regulatory body such as BCACC or CCC. I'll like quote her text down below so you can see it for yourself. It's important that the regulatory body requires a master's level of education. This looks like I'm telling you a scary story now. She says, there are counselors out there who have completed a 10-month program and then create their own regulatory body. It's complicated, it's political, but what you need to know is that they have a master's level of education from an accredited university and that they're registered with a regulatory body. So that I just wanted to put out there so that you make sure that you're getting specific, qualified, educated advice, methods, etc. So our marriage counselor, she used the Gottman method a lot, and that was incredibly helpful. We loved that. And I like swear I quote the Gottman stuff all the time to like friends and family, and I'm sure I've talked about it in videos. And then I also had some EMDR, which I'll just link below if you want to read about it, because again, I'm not an expert, but that has helped me so much with my PTSD of having a child with special needs. And then I've done 2 sessions regarding Jeremy's death, and it's like incredibly intense and incredibly difficult, but holy is it effective. Like, it's so effective. It has changed me. It like rewires your brain pathways. I'm gonna get this wrong. I don't want to try to explain it. I'll link something professional down below. But EMDR was amazing. So there is absolutely no shame in going to therapy. I think everyone should do it, and I think it is such a game changer. And like, you don't need to figure it out on your own. It's the same reason why I have an accountant and I have a bookkeeper. I don't need to learn these things. So if you go to a therapist or a counselor, someone who's accredited, they're going to give you such life skills so you don't feel alone, so you don't feel like you're just flailing, treading water all the time. They can be like, this is why you're feeling this way, and here are some very tangible, doable things in your everyday life to help you. And like, people often say to me, how are you doing so well? Like, therapy is such a pillar of my life. I'm no longer in therapy, actually. I graduated in June, and it was kind of twofold. One, I was getting to the point where I was seeing her like very infrequently, maybe once every 4 to 5 weeks. Often I would go in and be like, I don't really know what we want to talk about. Leading up to the 1 year of Jeremy passing, it definitely amped up, and it was like, you know, much more intense. And I had another EMDR session actually right around that time. And I just was getting to the point where I like didn't really know what to bring up in therapy. We both felt like I was in a good place. And apparently there is quite a concern if you become too reliant on it. You know, you want to go to therapy, you want to be engaged, you want to be open and honest. There's no reason to go and like pretend you have your shit together. That is not helping you. That is not allowing them to do their job. It's like, be open and honest and vulnerable with them. Talk about it. It's gross, it's ugly. Like, I've gone through so many boxes of Kleenex in therapy, but then listen to them with their tools and then actually practice and do the work. That's the thing, right? Like, it's all fine to go to therapy and go to counseling and pay for it, but if you're not going to put in the work between sessions, to me, that's just like doing yourself a disservice, and it's kind of like disrespectful to your therapist, in my opinion. Because like, I would take notes, or there were so many sessions where I was just not able to take notes, and I would have them like summarize it for me, because then I could like go back to it and be like, okay, what did we talk about? Like, because it can be really intense. That hour can go by so quickly, especially in EMDR. But yeah, then it's like, okay, what's my homework? What am I working on? And then going back and be like, this worked for me, this didn't work for me, X, Y, and Z. So ask your friends, make sure they're accredited, see what your insurance covers, talk to your GP. That's like usually a good place to start, because then they can prescribe it. If you have a health authority that offers it, like, go do the intake, etc. if you qualify. Again, like, I'm not an expert. This is just my experience and many different therapists and like, you know, life that's happened to me. But when you go and do the intake, don't like mince words, don't pretend you're fine. You're not gonna get help that way. Be honest, be like, it's really hard. I'm really struggling, I'm really suffering, I need help, and I need to talk to someone. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And if the people in your life are telling you that, you know, going to counseling makes you less than, or it makes you weak, or you should be able to figure it out on your own, no. I am here to love you and tell you that that is not the truth. You deserve to have all the best tools in your toolkit, and why not learn them from someone who has gone to school and who practices this day in and day out. I don't need to preach why you should go to therapy. I'm a good example of why. But again, I know it's not for everyone. I definitely have friends who have gone and haven't been able to continue after the first session because it's too difficult, or have had to leave sessions or tap out or cancel sessions over and over again because they just can't face it. It's hard, friends. It's not easy. It's putting your most vulnerable self out there and having to talk about stuff that's really hard and really upsetting. But it has been my experience that talking about it and like feeling the feels, like I always say, works through it and gets you to a better place. Like, I'm not thinking the short game of therapy, I'm thinking the long game of my mental health, my relationships, my role as a parent, as hopefully a partner to someone in the future, to my friends, to my family, just as a human being. She's an advocate for therapy. So I hope that that helps you. And then another question I get a lot is like, what if I don't like my therapist and I don't get on with them? I have fortunately never had that experience. I just wanted to say two things. One, if you don't feel a connection and you don't feel like they're listening to you and you don't feel like they get it, go to someone else. Go to somebody else. Go. Two, they're not there to be your friend. Like, I definitely left counseling sessions where I was like, I do not like them. That was awful. That was like so difficult. But then, you know, an hour later I'd be like, they are really good at their job. And that's why I'm paying them. I'm not paying them to tell me that I'm like a good human, or I'm fine, or I'm perfect. I'm paying them to like help me break down why things are so hard. So I hope that helps. Again, I don't want to come off as preachy. I just want you to know that it's really worked for me, and I've gotten this question a lot. So I'm gonna end it there. I'm gonna go deal with the spider that is like 2 feet from my pillow right now. Am I gonna deal with it? Never mind, it's just fluff. This whole time I thought it was this giant spider on my curtain. Nope. I'll also put below the therapists that I've worked with. That's only gonna help you if you're local, but 15 out of 10 recommend, obviously. And I hope that helps. If you have more questions, please leave them below or leave them in the Mareathoner Facebook group. Maybe we can help each other. I hope this answers your question if you are someone who has been asking me to film this video. I hope that you find it satisfying, and I hope that you continue to fight for therapy, for someone who you connect with. Don't settle for going at this alone, because you don't have to. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.